It's my platform, my jam. I posted a lot of stuff on LinkedIn. I love it. And I connect with great people literally every day. It's great. But your journey seems very linear on LinkedIn. It's like you jump from one great company to another, to another, to another. Life is never that linear. Never. Life is like this, you know?
Somebody told me last week, and I'm not going to tell you who because I promised that I wouldn't, okay? Somebody told me, and these are the exact words, okay? Somebody said, oh gosh, I saw Robin is going to be on your lineup. That's pretty awesome. Every single thing Robin touches turns to gold.
I wish.
And then I said, Robin Daniels, are you sure we have the same guy?
Yeah, exactly. Are you sure we have the same guy? Exactly. Are you aware of my last company I worked for? WeWork? Did that turn to gold?
I mean, for the attorneys, it did.
Yeah, that's true. For Adam Newman, it did.
Right, exactly.
For me, not so much. That's pretty funny. But that is exactly though. Let's touch on this because it is such the issue I think with LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. It's my platform, my jam. I posted a lot of stuff on LinkedIn. I love it, and I connect with great people literally every day. It's great. But your journey seems very linear on LinkedIn. It's like you jump from one great company to another, to another, to another. Life is never that linear. Never. Life is like this, you know, and LinkedIn does not have a good way of showing that in any way. So I think it's very deceiving in some way. And I get it. It's like, how do you illustrate that? Because each person's life is so unique. That's why one of my favorite topics on LinkedIn is about failure. The failures I've had, because I want people to know it was not always up and to the right. You know, I've been laid off many times. I've had to fire people. I've had to, you know, also get reprimanded. I've been yelled at. You know, I mean, I've been at companies that failed. You know, I was at a company called first Streaming 21, then Persistent Software. Both of them didn't make it. They both crashed and burned. In a more recent time, this is the last decade, I was at a company called Vera, where I was the CMO, and it was acquired, you know, for a decent amount. But it wasn't it wasn't acquired in a profitable way. So I'm like, okay, it was basically, you know, for me, it's not a win. But I had a good experience there. I learned a lot. I grew my life and career and experience and so on. But it's not like it wasn't that financial success in that way. So what do you measure success by? Was it a success in terms of me learning a lot? For sure, you know, and me having some fun? For sure. Did I make a ton of money out of it? No. Right? So
but see, that's the thing. Yeah. So that's the exact thing. So you're talking, that's the exact thing. So people automatically see the company and they go, oh, it got acquired. They automatically think the C-suite just crushed it.
Exactly.
They don't have any, they have no idea what it takes. And one of the things that I've been talking to, we just recently launched at like a mid-level course on executive presence. And, you know, like, being present when it's really hard to be present, right?
Yes.
Okay, so one of the things we're talking about is the straight line. Like, how BS is the straight line? It's not straight. There's so many dips. There's so many issues. But these younger ones that we're turning out, they do see LinkedIn, and, you know, you don't jump on and go, hey, I mean, you do and I do, but hey, you know, here are the ways that I failed. Most people don't do that. They just see the successes and they don't see all the other places that you really sacrificed. And yes, did you grow? Yeah, you grew professionally, but you weren't cha-ching.
And the guilt I had for not seeing my family as much as I need to, or feeling like you're constantly not being the best dad in the world and all these things, you know. And so that's the stuff that people don't see, because how do you even tell to people? Because it's not like it's unique. Everyone kind of goes through that. You have to, it's such a fine balance between work and life. And if you work too much, you feel guilty about your friends and family. And if you lean too much into that, then you feel like you're not giving it your all at work. And you're like, well, then I'm never going to get promoted. I'm never going to, you know, rise to the VP level, C-suite, and so on. So it's this constant duality that you have to fight with at some point. That's why I always think at some point in your life and career, you have to lean in and you have to like just go for it, really go for it, and work your ass off, because you have to create some momentum. And then you can't lean back too much, but you can lean back a little bit once you've created some escape velocity. You know, for me, it was Salesforce. When I worked there, I really leaned in. I worked my ass off. I gave it my all. And that gave me some momentum. Of course, it helped that the company was doing well and the brand was a good brand. Right. But it was also because I leaned in. I really worked my ass off for that company to create something very special. And so what the next company came along, it's like, whatever you did at Salesforce, come do it for us at Box. You know, that was kind of the line they used with me, because I had created enough momentum. That meant that I can now have a little bit more opportunity ahead of me, that I could be a little bit more choosy around and choose my own kind of path, which I think when you're first starting out, you feel like your options are quite limited. I remember feeling that way when I first came to it. It was like, whatever comes my way, I'm going to take it, because it's not like I have a gazillion options in front of me. And that changes over the course of your life. It doesn't mean it gets easier, and that's another thing. I wish there was a way to tell people about how hard leadership is in a way that doesn't sound like woes, because I hate when rock stars or pop stars sing about, oh, live my tough life, and they're making billions, and they're out there in their Lamborghinis and their private islands, and like, oh, it's so tough. I'm like, really? And it's kind of like a little bit the same with being a head of something or a C-level. You know, it's of course the pay is better, the equity, you get more responsibility, but it's also really tough in some ways. I mean, you're constantly, like you said, you're very much isolated and alone. You know, there's not many people who can relate to you. You're never quite part of the team, even though you're leading a team, if you know what I mean. Of course, you're part of the team, but there's always a little bit of separation because the way that leadership works. And so it's a weird, like isolation in some way. If I'm being honest about it, it's something that I struggle with, you know, when I think about, because I really like to be part of the team. I like to dig in there and be part of the crew, but sometimes you also just have to tell people, this is what we're going to go do. And you have to give hard feedback, and that always puts this little bit of awkward separation, but it's part of leadership. That's what it is.
Okay, so I promise you this is going to be like literally the only regurgitated content, but everybody is so fascinated about this with you. You, born in Copenhagen, came to the U.S., bought a one-way ticket, slept where, did what, and with who? I mean, you don't have, not the with who so much, but, you know, like a little with who.
You just go, you get straight in there, don't you?
I mean, let's go. Come on.
You don't mess around. You don't mess around. Well, so yes, I came February 1st, 2000. I did buy that one-way ticket. I didn't have a place to stay. I didn't know anybody. I'd never been to California before, and I didn't have a job. I just had my two suitcases. There was a green and a yellow Samsonite suitcase in my two hands. A picture of me, I'll dig it up one day, of me just leaving for the airport with my two hard case Samsonite suitcases. The first place I stayed was a Holiday Inn down by San Jose Airport. It was one of the cheapest places I could find. I didn't have a lot of money, so I figured I'd stay there for a few days until I found a room on Craigslist that I could go and rent even cheaper. So I came up, because you can't really do that from Denmark. It's hard to rent some place when you haven't met the people. Because back then you still would meet up in a coffee shop, which I did with this guy in Los Gatos. He told me he had a room, and I rented it from him. But I didn't know anyone, so the way I met women when I first came over there was through online apps. I was a pioneer in that space. Dating.com and other apps like that was what I would use to
So you are a first adopter. You're an early adopter. Yes. Nice. Exactly. I like it.
Always been a first adopter. And it works somewhat if you're, even back then it was crude, but it worked. You meet people.
Right.
And I met some people. But it was also through work and work friends that I was starting to make as I got more and more embedded. And I met my wife at work, actually. So when I finally came to Veritas in 2001, January 2001, about a year after my journey, because the first two companies did not make it, I ended up getting hired at a company called Veritas as a product marketing manager. I was 22 at the time when I got hired there. And the first person that I met was my future wife, Barbara. She was the executive assistant to the head of marketing, and I'm just like, I'm going to sleep my way to the top. It's going to be great,
I've heard that about you. That's my next question.
Yeah, exactly. But actually, so she was the first person I met. She had also moved from the Midwest, so she didn't know many people. I didn't know many people. We became great friends as I got hired there, and I started working there. And we just started really falling in love with each other, and then we really decided, it was on 9/11, 2001, that we had the moment of truth around, is this going to be a thing or not? Because we always had this, like, we like each other, but we're working together. And it's a little awkward, what if it doesn't work out? And for many reasons, workplace romances can be really great or really awkward, mostly awkward for most people, right? Yeah, or both, right? But we just decided, like, we really like each other, and we don't want to regret this for the rest of our life because of this mental barrier that we're working together. So 9/11 was like a moment of truth. Like, life is short, because everyone at that moment, I know if you think back on your life, everyone felt very fragile suddenly, and like, it's just a war that's starting. You know, life can evaporate like that. You know, it was hard, and so we just had each other to comfort each other in that moment. But it also made us realize how much we loved each other. So that was beauty out of chaos, so to speak.
That's awesome. So when you moved here and you were finished with all the dating apps and endorsing logos, when you were,
I've never told that to anybody before. It's a little weird.
Yay! Good Lord, considering all the things we've talked about, that's not one of the weirdest.
That's true. This is fair. Did you ever try any of the early ones, dating.com?
Oh yeah. You should ask my husband about that. This is like a hysterical thing. Like, I could tell you a story about this and you would literally die laughing. So I did try Match.com. I did. And I quickly, so you obviously know how I feel about noise, and I didn't really kind of get into all the settings and everything, and I didn't know all the filter stuff, and all of a sudden I started getting like, 4 would be overwhelming, and it was like 40. So I was like, okay, I really just can't do this anymore. Okay, fast forward, I meet my husband. He's amazing. Okay, he's phenomenal. Thank God I met him on a soccer field and not in Match.com, because I would never hear the end of it. Hysterical story that you will love that I'm just going to share with you really fast that no one knows. So my best friend is going through this excruciating divorce, okay? And she goes, hey, meet me in Park City. And I was like, fine, I'm going to meet you in Park City, but you're going to actually go on a date. And she's like, yeah, that's not happening. Pound salt, okay? So I said, no, you're really going to go on a date. So we went out to a bar, and she was very uncomfortable. She hadn't dated in many, many years, and it's uncomfortable. It's weird, okay? So I was like, oh, give me my iPad. So I get my iPad, and I don't know any of the dating apps now. Like, I have no idea. So I'm like looking at them, and I'm looking, this is like 3 or 4 years ago, and I'm looking at them, I'm like, like, what is, ew, like, it was sketchy before, but now it's sketchy an entirely new level. So I'm like, you know what, I'm not even going to listen to you. I had 300 pictures of her, so I went on to my computer, and I set up her profile. And I will tell you this, we laughed for 3 days so hard, our faces
from the responses.
Oh my gosh, from the responses, and you know, the things that people would say to kind of get attention. And it was, Robin, it was sad, and it was funny, and then it was kind of like cute. There was like a bunch of all these different emotions. Okay, so listen to this. So I never use my iPad. You know, Kaden uses it, so I don't really use my iPad ever, okay? So a year later, we're on a flight, and Kaden goes to pull up movies and has a passcode sent to my, like, a junk email, okay? And my husband is there, and he's pulling it up, and all of a sudden it says, Stephynie, found your perfect match, found your perfect match, found your perfect match, found your perfect match. And he's like, and it's, Robin, it's like, brrr, like, just, and
honey, what's going on?
he's sitting in another seat, and he turns it to me, and he's like, should I, like, and I was like, I couldn't speak for 60 seconds because I was laughing so hard. And I was like, I'm like, I swear. And he's like looking at me, he's like, I mean, it was
just endless scrolling.
And for a year, I mean, think about what that looked like. Like, he was just like, what is going on? I'm like, hey, at least none of them have been open. Like, this really could have played out much differently. You could have opened them and seen, you know. But yeah, so the dating app.
What was the dating app that got hacked?
Madison, Ashley Madison.
Yes, yeah, that's the one. Oh,
yes,
it's like 95% men or something, right?
Thank God I didn't get any clients from that.
Thank God I was an early adopter.
You're like my interaction was very sweet and cute. Okay, it wasn't like that.
Exactly. It's just horrible.
Oh my God. Okay, so I'm going to bounce around everywhere, okay?
Sure.
Most pivotal moment of your entire career thus far. And don't give me any weird or lame answers. I want something real.
Most pivotal moment. Let me think about it. That's a really good question. I would say it was probably at Vera. I've been there 2.5 years. It was in the last... I guess last decade, I was a CMO there. I was one of the early employees there. Came in as like employee number 8 and built the company up. We raised over $50 million in funding over several rounds, grew the team. But I come from Salesforce, where I led Chatter, Box, which was on team collaboration, and then I came into this industry that was cybersecurity. Very serious, very dour, very kind of negative, if I'm honest about it. Very much playing on fear. If you know anything about me, I do not like fear. I'm trying to put some positivity out into the world, and so that was always haunting me a little bit. And I felt for a long time, it wasn't just after 2 years, I felt for a long time is this the right thing for me? But I was also worried at that point, because it was I was still learning how to be a CMO, to be honest, at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was like, if I leave too soon, what does that say about me? As a person, to the VCs, to the industry, to the recruiters, about my ability to see things through. And I had this in my mind, I gotta stick it out. But then after 2.5 years, I started thinking about it from the other direction. What does it say about me if I didn't leave? What would it say about me as a person if I didn't have the integrity to follow through and do something that I'm really passionate about? Go back to something where I'm passionate about giving back, the people, the industry I'm working in, putting out something that's positive, that's really hopefully changing the world in a positive way. Yeah. So I started changing my perspective a lot on that. But it was such a pivotal moment, because you can either see it from the inside out of my first perspective was very fear-based. What people think about me, will I be a pariah in the valley? Will I not be able to get another CMO gig if I leave too soon? I'll leave the two founders who I told everyone that I'm going to stick by, for a long time. What if I leave them too soon, and the company creators, which it did a little bit afterwards. But then I just started taking the other approach, what does it say about me if I don't follow through? And everybody who knew me knew that I wasn't happy there. I wasn't living up to my full potential. I wasn't passionate about the company. I wasn't passionate about the industry. I wasn't passionate about the product. It was just it was just not my jam. And then so for a good 6 months, I would wake up, and just not be motivated. I'm just it's just not me. I'm just not excited about the whole thing. So I ended up deciding to leave, but it was really hard, because I felt even though I wasn't a founder, they called me the near founder, because I was the first executive they hired in, and I helped. At that point when I started, I basically led most of the team that wasn't engineering or product until we found the right executives for each of the functions. So it was really hard to leave. I felt you're betraying your the trust of your friends and the founding team and so on. So it was a really hard conversation with the CEO at that point. I remember we were in New York together visiting customers, and we were out at the Gramercy Tavern, I think it was called, down in It's a great place to have one of the best burgers in the world. Yeah,
but it's not a great place to deliver information, though. We should talk about that.
No, exactly. There was never a good time. I figured it was the moment where him and I were together. We become good friends, because as you do as founders and in an early stage startup. But I told him. He was definitely upset, and I was upset too. It was it was a really hard conversation, but he also understood. It was he knew he had grown to learn my personality enough to know that I was being genuine about what I said. I wasn't leaving to go to another opportunity. I hadn't lined anything up. I just told him, hey, I'll take as long as it needs to transition, but I'm going to leave. This is not for me. It was really hard. Having the courage, I think, to do that.
Anybody who knows you, who spends any time with you at all, just knows how integrity driven you are. They really that you don't push your own agenda, but you definitely want to be inclusive in that agenda. And so anybody who knows you for any length of time would know that this would be a very uncomfortable place for you to show up to every single day,
Very, very much so.
Even though the conversation was hard and you've had to have a lot of those hard conversations, can you imagine what it would have looked like if you would not have done it?
Exactly. Because then the way I show up to my team every day is without passion, without fire, without fuel. And that is what I think about my superpower, right? I didn't go to any great schools that you would ever know. I'm not the best marketer out there. I think if you say, hey, who's the best brand marketer, I can name a person. Who's the best product marketer, I can name a person. Who's the best storyteller, communications. My power is being excited, passionate, getting the best out of people, and really leading a team to inspire them to do great things that they maybe never even thought they could do themselves, and getting people motivated to work well together and kind of break down those barriers. And so if I'm not motivated, it makes it very hard to do my job, I think. And so that was kind of the realization.
Yeah, if you're flat, if you're flat and you're kind of coming in and you don't fake it well. You have got a very specific smile that's like a super fake smile, and you're like, what's this going to look like today?
Yeah. And it's not great. I've never wanted a job where you're kind of like looking at the clock. You're like, is it time to go home? That's a shitty feeling, honestly. And I know there will always be times where you have meetings or days where you're like, this sucks, but if you have it for 6 months, you really got to do something about it. Maybe that was even too long, and maybe I should have done so, but you can beat yourself up mercilessly when you look back. But I'm so glad I made the decision, because that led me to go then to LinkedIn for a while, and it's a platform I love. And LinkedIn was great in terms of like just getting to a place where there was so much positivity and passion around the product and the platform. It's something I was really excited by. And then of course, that led me to WeWork. I wasn't actually looking to leave. If you rewound the clock back, I thought I was going to be at LinkedIn a very long time. It's a great company, great culture. It's not perfect. There were things that I would have changed, but overall, I thought it's a really strong place to grow your career and lead a team that was passionate about what they were doing. But but WeWork came along, and they just kind of had a great story, because I felt at that point in time what WeWork was trying to do, the story they were telling, and I got there through Kendall, who I used to work with at Salesforce, a great leader. That they were trying to be basically a physical version of LinkedIn. And at that point, I felt like LinkedIn is a great platform, but it's like the world is going in the wrong direction. People are becoming more and more divided. And social media has a lot to blame for it, but other things as well in the world. And I'm like, if the WeWork model of like getting people together physically to break down barriers of understanding between all of us, I think that's a beautiful thing. And I still believe it's a beautiful thing, even to this day, that we are better when we're together. I love that we can work remotely. You and I can chat now. It's not the same as being in the same room. For the first time last week, I met, not everyone, but I met quite a few of the Matterport team members and the executive team in New York. The first time I joined, during the pandemic, 1.5 years, I've been looking through a screen. The first time meeting them was so emotional. It's so great to see everyone, give people a hug and talk to them, see their body language, not just their face. It's just weird. It's so great.
So that I wanted to see if that was actually true, because the last time you and I chatted, you said, Steph, I still haven't met any of them live. Like, imagine. When I was talking to my team about this, so Robin, this is really important. So everybody has struggles with their team. We've talked about that. Everybody has struggles with hiring. We've talked about that. Everybody has problems with standing out and having key differentiators. We'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
But to do that remotely, but to manage a team remotely, and I'd like to add, you're still living in Copenhagen, right? You went back.
I am. Yeah, I'm here right now. So, this is where.
Right.
Yeah.
So the time difference, okay?
Yes,
not meeting your team, trying to figure out a way to motivate and still be approachable and be the best leader that you possibly can be, which, by the way, I think you're amazingly fabulous. But to do that through a screen and to hire through a screen and to hopefully, I don't know, maybe fire through a screen or any of the things that you've had to do, walk me through that, what that was like for you emotionally and from a leadership perspective.
I think it's been, if you ask about the hardest thing, so I just mentioned one. The other thing I think is this past 1.5 years, it's been really tough to lead and motivate through a screen, and because the time zone difference makes some things easier because we can kind of like bounce off each other in interesting ways, but it also makes it really hard. Sending a motivational Slack message is not the same as you and I being in the same room and like talking things out when things are going well, or sending a harsh Slack message, because sometimes communication can come across as really harsh, even though I don't mean it that way. I'm just trying to get to a resolution on something. I'm like, hey, Susan, I don't have a Susan with me. Hey, Susan, can you get me this right now? I need it. It sounds really harsh when she's reading it potentially, right? And I'm always trying to be aware of that, but I don't mean it that way. If we were in a room, I'd just be like, hey, I just need this, for my meeting, or something. So it's been really tough, because I'm the kind of person that likes to read body language and likes to see how I can get people to understand their emotional intelligence a little bit, to see how I can communicate with them in the best possible way. And it's really hard to do through a screen. And so when I met people last week, it was so fun, because it's the week we were IPOing the company. Great, so lots of like good vibes, but also for everyone it was very emotional. And for a few of us, I wasn't the only one. It was maybe out of the 20 people that came, I think maybe 5 of us had started during the pandemic. So we'd never met anybody in person. So it was just kind of like very emotional and weird to be there under that circumstance. It was so joyous, but it was also it's very intense. There were quite a few tears actually, for all of us as we were like going through the day of the IPO, especially, and realizing that we've done this all without ever being in the same room once. Through the battles that we've been through. But when it comes to your point about leadership and leading a team, I think it's been really, really tough. There's no doubt about it. And trying to, I think when you come into a new company, whoever you are, I think it takes a good 3 to 6 months to build some trust in a team, in a relationship. I think it takes twice as long at least, doing Zoom, Google Hangouts, whatever you're using. Twice as long, if not 3 times as long, because you just don't have the moments of serendipity. Everything is, you got to get to a point. And so when we were in New York last week,
a process.
When I was in New York last week, because we had some offsite with some of the team members, it's in the breaks when you're standing there getting some coffee and you're just refilling and taking a weird bite of a brownie and you're chatting together. Those are the moments when you connect. And there's a couple of members of the executive team where I feel like we haven't really connected in a meaningful and authentic way, and not because anybody has any ill intent, not at all. It's just we hadn't had those moments. So it was really important for us to bond together over dinner, drinks, all the things that we've taken for granted. So when people say that future work is all remote, I'm like, it's such BS. If you ask me, there's no way. I think part of it is remote, part of it is flexible, but it's really about giving and trusting people to have the freedom they need to do the work that they want when they want. And sometimes that means being together, and sometimes that means being apart. But I don't believe in a future where everyone is just completely remote. It's only going to isolate people further, and their mental health is going to struggle. I think the mental health aspect of the last year and a half has been really tough because you don't feel like you have the moments of release together that are so important as a team. So it's been... I'm both proud of what everyone has accomplished, immensely proud. And even myself, I'm proud of myself for getting through this. And we're not through it completely yet. But it has not been easy. It really has not been easy.
So again, that's like a lot of the things that I wanted to bring to the listeners was, the mental health aspect of this. It's real. And I agree with you completely, Robin, when it comes to, I want there to be an option of working together. And I want there to be an option of being remote, because sometimes... I was talking to somebody the other day, and I was telling them how many incubators that we've been in until 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning with a giant whiteboard where somebody is just so spun and you just start making funny pictures and everybody starts laughing and, and then there wasn't DoorDash at the time, but then somebody knows a place that's open until midnight and you order food and you guys work all through the night. We're missing all of those things right now. We're so missing those things. Completely. Those are the things that make us,
We had good dinners every night last week with the team. It was so great to just have those moments where you can break down the barriers. And those are the great ideas also flow in a way that it just doesn't flow in a virtual setting. When we were then RJ, our CEO, will say something, and Gene will jump in on top of that and build on it, and then JD, our CFO, will build, and everyone starts laughing, and then we build on that. You don't have any of that on this medium because it's so. Right. Now you talk, now it's your turn, It's like, there's no flow. There's nearly zero flow to a conversation. So, and then people become hyper aware also, I've noticed, even though I try my darndest to get everyone to speak as much as they can when we do our team meetings and so on, but some are very introverted and they become even more introverted, I think, nearly on a Zoom call because they become so aware of their own, now I'm in the spotlight and 30, 40 people are looking at me. It's very uncomfortable. So when I say any questions, it's always the same people who raise their hand and speak up, the extroverts usually. And you really have to tease it out of people or pose questions and learn how to pose questions and read body language in a way that gets them to engage. It's been a very hard skill when you only see people's face like this all the time. It's just very bizarre.
Like this.
Yeah, exactly, right.
And it's really hard. And here's the thing, you're great to work with as far as easing people up. You'll joke and you'll get down to business, but you'll also joke. But when you haven't met someone and that someone is your boss, you're still kind of minding your P's and Q's. And if you will, there's relationship busters and there's relationship, binders, and you don't really get those unless you're with somebody. You can't really create private jokes or innuendos or fun things that you play off of all day long on a video screen. You and I have been able to do it, but nobody else.
I confided to my CEO, this is maybe a month ago or so, maybe a month and a half ago, and said, hey, there's one team member that I'm struggling a little with, like just getting us to connect and bond. And he's like, it's because you've never like been in the same room together. You never talked about anything meaningful. It's all about just work. And if you're coming from different worlds, then you will see the world differently. And he's right. Then when we got together in New York last week, it was great to just bond in person because we got to have a drink together and kind of like chat a little bit about stuff that wasn't work. Hey, what do you do outside of work? And all those things that make us human. And so it's like we need that. I really hope that the future is where I can go see my team when we need to. I can go meet people when we need to, but we have the flexibility to kind of do what we want. It's interesting because I don't know if we're out of it anytime soon. It feels like the world is going back into.
It's like start, stop.
I know,
start, stop. It's
like, come on already. Just make up your mind.
Okay, here's some more. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, three valuable lessons that you would tell a private room. Mm-hmm. So think of your 20 to 30-year-olds, okay?
Yeah.
So we've talked about in areas where you and I have felt like they really thrive a lot.
Yeah.
Personally, you and I have, and where they kind of fall apart, okay? So I want to be an executive. I want Robin's job. Okay? Mm-hmm. Tell me as openly and honestly as you possibly can what skills they're missing to get to your job and what they can do better to be a standout.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great question. I think about it a lot too. I think it's true, I do, because I'm trying to coach people through both in the company, but also outside the company. I coach and mentor some people, and you certainly need to be really good at something. There's no doubt about it. You have to kind of choose your path of what you want to be good at. Doesn't mean you have to keep that forever. And when you're in a company, it's easier than ever to move around. Your main goal is to get your foot in the door. And how do you do that? You open the door first. You have to first meet somebody. I always felt like there's a guy I mentor, and I say, just like if you can convince somebody to just take a meeting with you, that's the biggest hurdle. Because then once you're in there, then you can convince pretty much anyone if you're persuasive of how great you are and what you can do for them and so on. But just getting that meeting is so important. And it's been harder with COVID. I do think it's been harder because we're doing it this way. Again, it's not the same as being in person where you can meet somebody. But so you gotta figure out the door, get it open, get a meeting, and then you gotta persuade somebody. And of course, you gotta have some hard skills, especially as you're starting out your career. In your I would say early to mid level of your career, a lot of it's about your hard skills. But what will make you succeed is all about your soft skills. There's no doubt about it. It's the thing that will either make or break you. The reason you get promoted to leadership is oftentimes because of your soft skills. Don't get me wrong. You have to, of course, have results. It's important. And results can't just be every now and then. You have to consistently deliver great results and be innovative and have great ideas. But it's about the soft skills. If you show up as a jerk, you will never really get promoted. And you and I have known jerks, so it happens, of course. It's not like it doesn't happen, right? But
I'm still trying to figure out what their hard skills and their soft skills are, actually.
Exactly. But companies are becoming aware. People are becoming aware that kind of behavior is becoming very frowned upon, I would say now. Maybe 20, 30, 40 years ago it was fine. As long as you were just delivering, it didn't matter how you delivered. I think it's exactly the opposite. Now it's about how you deliver. Right? If you leave a wake of destruction behind you and how you deliver, not good enough anymore. If you have everybody hating you even though you're getting results, it's not going to fly. And because nowadays so many jobs are a team effort. You rarely do anything alone.
No.
Sales used to be the ultimate lone wolf. Yeah, sales used to be the ultimate lone wolf. Even sales now is completely a team effort, right? Marketing has always been a team sport, but sales has always been kind of now it's a team effort, right? Engineering, product, finance, taking a company public, it's all a massive team. So if you don't have the soft skills, and soft skills, it's not about, here's what people get wrong about soft skills. People think soft skills is about reading what your mood, your language, your body language, and so on, and then trying to say what they think you want to hear. That's not what soft skills is about. That's not what soft skills.
That's not it at all.
No, but that's what a lot of people think. You can tell things awkwardly. They try to tell you what you want to hear, or based on what they think. And it's a little bit like, kissing ass, and it doesn't really work that well. But it's very like, if you're starting out your journey on your soft skills, that's what people think. It's like reading somebody's body language, their emotions, their person, and then telling you what you think. But that's not what it is. I think having high EQ is all about reading you and telling you the right thing in a tactful way that is modified to how your mood is, who you are, what you're interested in, and so on. Telling you the thing that you need to hear in the right way. That's what it's about. Not telling you the thing that you think you want to hear. And that's a very different, I think, mindset, because it's about having the courage then to have those conversations. But again, I think EQ is about having it in a way that makes it seem like we're in this together. It's about
it's a partnership.
I'm telling you this because I care about you. I'm not telling you that. I'm telling you this to make you better. And so it's a very different thing, because I see people when they're, especially in their mid-level and they're trying to like grow to the next level, they're oftentimes catering a little bit too much, trying to get everybody to like them. And I've been guilty of this. Don't get me wrong. Certainly, I think people want to be liked. I'm one of those people too.
Right.
But as you mature in your career, you also got to be able to have the harder conversations. There's no doubt about it. And I've admired and respected, especially the leaders I work for, who have the courage to do that. And they do it with compassion. They're not assholes about it, because I've worked with some of those people, and it's just there's a way of doing things. That's what I mean by EQ, like having the courage to say the right thing, but in a tactful, compassionate way. I think is what EQ is about.
So I think that's really awesome, and I want to touch on that for a second, because again, one of the things that we've talked about so much, Robin, is about empathetic connection, creating empathy. And empathy is not only for yourself, it's a practice skill like we've talked about, but it's also really a reflection of the other person. So it's really creating the connection and actually kind of getting into their head and letting them know, just exactly like you said, like I'm taking the time out of my day to spend time with you and share with you some of the things that might make you even better than you already are. Sometimes that's well received. What I have found, and I'm interested to see where you are, is it's been not as well received from maybe the younger generation, who don't necessarily have that as a high priority right now on their list. They almost take it as, we call, there's sometimes we say, like a snowflake, or like, their feelings were hurt, or things like that. It really is not intentional at all. It's really to make you better, because we actually think you're so great at this. If you were able to maybe do these things, and they're extremely offended. Have you found that as well?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, for sure. That's why I think the calibration needs to happen, because you can easily, I think, misunderstand the intention coming through. And so I think I've definitely found it. And I've been guilty of that, certainly complaining about millennials or snowflakes and so on, right? And I've probably been one myself at times with my guests. I'm pretty sure people, because I'm kind of like borderline there. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. What I love about that generation is that they care so much. They're purpose-driven in a way that I think we were never trained to be. And I think many of us are waking up to realize, kind of like epiphany I had when I was at Vera, like I want to do something I'm passionate about. I want to be purpose-driven. I want to do something that's meaningful. And I think they're much better at that than we are. But I do think that my experience has been, some of them lack the resilience and the grit of what it's really required sometimes to go all the way. And again, it's a hard generalization to make, because I've also met fantastic people who are just like, they put their head down, they do great work and so on. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag. So you have to just read and understand where they come from. If they have in their mindset that this is just a job, and many of them do, like other people, like I don't want to characterize, like I think many other generations do, but if it's just a job, then you also got to put as much effort into it to them in the same way. If they think it's just a job, but you can always find the people who believe it's more, it's a vocation, it's a mission, I'm going to do whatever I can. Those are the people you invest in, because they will go through walls to make you and the company successful. And if you have those in your team, it's the best, because they are like the superstar. The people who show up like it's a job, like there's nothing wrong with it, but you can kind of tell. It's like they're doing their job and they probably do it well, but it's like, do they go the extra mile? not always. Right. Yeah.
Do you think that that's a trainable? So do you think that that's trainable? So do you think if you gave that feedback to somebody and you said, hey, look, we feel, and by the way, it's not wrong. It's not bad. If this is a job for you, for whatever reason, that's not for me to judge. I'm not going to judge you at all. Okay.
That's right.
But gosh, it would be really exciting if you would go that extra mile. And these are some of the reasons why, or these are some of the ways how. Do you think that that's a trainable skill?
I think it can. I think it comes through storytelling. This is why I'm so passionate about storytelling, is because storytelling is not just about the purpose of the company and what you're trying to do, but it's also the purpose of the individual. So getting to learn and understand the individual person's journey and what they want to accomplish, if you can then tease out how working together and doing this thing will help them get there, I think that's the way to motivate them. Very few people, honestly, are motivated by a little bit extra money or a few shares extra or whatever. You don't wake up every day thinking about how much money you make. You know, it's usually about some larger goal you have in life. When I was at LinkedIn, we did this thing in one of my offsites where it was given as a way to break down barriers. So every person, I gave them the homework assignment, would show up at the offsite, and the first thing we would share is why we're doing what we're doing on a personal, deeply personal level. And, you know, I started by sharing mine, just so break the ice and so on, make it not super uncomfortable. And I said, you know, I do what I do to make my son proud. You know, everything I do is because I know the way I grew up very poor. You know, my parents were divorced. You know, I had to kind of fight for everything, you know, in a way. I had to hustle my way through life. And I'm working so hard, and I put so much effort into it to make my son proud of who I am and who I've become. And I'm getting all emotional now just thinking about it. But that's my why. That's my personal why. And so if you can find that in everyone, then you can also start catering the rewards based on that. But it takes effort. You know, you have to lean in. It's not like something that just people voluntarily will say to you.
No,
so you have to kind of figure out how to get that information. You have to tease it out, and some people it's harder to tease that out than others. So when we did that exercise, it was interesting. A lot of tears in that exercise. People were very emotional. They were telling their personal stories about why they were doing what they were doing. Some did it to belong. You know, like I've never felt like I belonged before, and now I'm feeling like I belong as part of this team. That was super heartwarming. Or I wanted to break I wanted to make my parents, prove them wrong. You know, they thought I wouldn't be successful in what I'm doing. It's like, but there's all these great stories, but it was getting to the personal why is really important. But it takes also, I think, both the exercise is good for team bonding, but it was also good for each person individually for some introspection about why you're doing what you're doing.
So I think that's amazing. And the reason why I think that's so incredible is I know you know this, but for the companies I've launched and the firms that I've run, we've had a 1% turnover. So we don't have a very large turnover at all. And the crazy part about this is I stopped doing it how I was taught to do, which is you make sure review the resume, you do backdoor reference checking. Finally, I think, honestly, Robin, I think one day I just really had it. And I was running around and I was crazy. I think I hadn't been outside. I know, right. Running around crazy? No, not at all. So I remember I got this resume and I remember being so ticked off. Like, why am I am not the person to interview because I am so, can you imagine going through an interview with me? We should do that in another podcast.
That would be amazing.
This would be so fun. So I basically looked at the resume and it was a C-suite position and I looked at it and I remember I put on my tennis shoes and I remember I tossed the resume and I remember Sarah ran after me and she's like, hey, you forgot his resume. I'm like, you know what? If he can't talk about his experience, I damn well don't need to hire him.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I remember I literally stopped using resumes. They'd be like, this person went to Stanford and then he went to Yale and you know he's done B school, blah, blah. I don't care. What is your purpose? What is your passion? Why are you doing these things? What motivates you? What elevates you? What makes you think that you've hit it out of the park? What's your measurement of success? And I swear, Robin, they were like, like they hadn't prepared for that. What's my measurement of what again, Steph? What, one more time? What's my measurement? So when doing that and thinking about that, I think you're very eloquent in saying these are the things that you do to actually motivate people and bring them to another level. Yeah. I'm so sad. I have one more question. I really want to do this for another 2 hours, maybe 3 hours, because I just feel like so many people get so much great stuff from you when we're able to have these conversations. Tell me your perfect avatar. One of the things that you do really well is you read people extraordinarily well. You're also a creator and you're also a connector. Okay. So tell me, what avatar would you hire and create a position? So you're at a coffee shop
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody walks in. What conversation do you say, oh my God, you need to come work for me? What does that person look like?
Wow, what a great question. Like, okay, what does my avatar look like? Like, who's my perfect hire?
Who's your perfect hire?
It is somebody who is fearless and has grit and passion. And I've hired a few of those people. They had no experience, and I just saw something in them. And they've all gone on to do great things. There's two that come to mind: Elise and Yannick. Elise I hired Vera, Yannick over at LinkedIn, and I was introduced to both. Well, actually, Elise I was introduced to through a mutual friend. He just said, she's awesome. You got to meet her. She was an SDR at the time. She hated it, but super bright. She's like, she wanted to do something else. Can you just take a meeting and give her some life coaching? I'm like, okay, fair enough. And I met her. I'm just like, oh my God, she's awesome. I got to hire her. So that kind of a person, because she had grit and passion and tenacity, which I just love. And Yannick was similar, but he also was super humble. It was just like, I've struggled in these areas, for some reason, I can't get people to take a meeting with me. I have great skills. I feel like I've had a good background in education, but, I don't know why. Can you just give me some pointers? But he was so passionate about the story he told me about his life and how he grew up in Africa and Europe and now in the US. I'm just like somebody with that life experience is very hard to find, because they've been through some struggles. I say this a lot to my team, but you forge bonds when you go through some shit together, or when you go through some shit by yourself, right? That's really what you do. That's how you build resilience. I know there's a lot of books out there about grit and resilience. I don't know if you can read about it or teach it.
Nope.
I think maybe you can get some pointers, but I really think you have to live through some shit. And the only way to do it, and it's because what they teach you perspective on things, right? And I know you've been through quite a few things, but I think those people I met, Elise and Yannick, just two examples, had both. They'd had many failures and setbacks. You can tell they were just hungry, because when they're hungry for it, they will do whatever it takes to prove people wrong. And I love that.
So I know that is absolutely incredible, and I love that you were able, because obviously nothing was prepared, and I didn't go off their notes, and I went off some crazy questions. I know you probably know the Mark Benioff story about the waiter at the Rosewood. Did you know that story?
No, I don't know.
Okay, so Mark's at dinner, and I don't even know how public this is. Not that I care, but so Mark's at dinner, and there's a 10-12 top dinner, and the waiter was absolutely completely exceptional, and to anticipate Mark's needs is not easy. It's not an easy thing. No. And this waiter, literally, Robin, Mark couldn't say something without it just being like the genie. Like, this guy was like, blah, 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 blah. And I remember, it's the funniest story. It was probably maybe 10 years ago. And I remember that at the end of dinner, Mark basically handed him his card. And he said, "Are you looking for a job? Because I can't teach this type of service. I can't teach this type of suggestive selling. I can't teach this." And the waiter was like, "Who are you?"
That's
and
so
we
great.
were dying laughing, because it was just like the funniest thing in the entire world. But that's exactly what you're saying. The grit, the anticipation, the going through things, being there, reading people is fabulous.
And if you can operationalize that, that's a great story. I'll tell you. So when I was at LinkedIn, I got to meet lots of fascinating people, and all the people I met were hiring heads of people, heads of talent. It was great. And I met this head of talent at an insurance company, and the data shows nobody wants to work for an insurance company. Nobody. It's like the industry doesn't have a good reputation. Did your job sound drab? Do you want to go sell insurance to people? And so they had a tough time recruiting, and especially in customer support and customer success. So they were very creative. They said, "Well, who are really good with people?" Because you have to be good with people in that industry, because you have to convince them of things. They went out and then hired bartenders. They went out because the bartenders, especially if you're a top end bartender, but if you're just working in some dead end bar and you're good with people, you can get a fabulous job, probably 5 times your salary or something, maybe, and you're good with people. So they found out a secret hack of how do they get people attracted to their industry and to get them in to make it more interesting. And they had amazing success, but it's so counterintuitive. Who would have thought? Let's go hire bartenders to work customer success and support in an insurance company. Okay.
But again, it goes back to it goes back to customer success. It goes back to what's the customer story. It goes back to how you connect with them. So yeah, it's crazy, but again, it's also amazing and brilliant.
So, totally brilliant. I was like, that is brilliant. Awesome.
So you started going to all the bars and recruiting all the bartenders for,
I will be your researcher. There you
so
go.
one fun fact before you go, and I want a commitment right now that we get to do this again soon.
Yes, for sure. For sure.
So I was picking out bathroom fixtures a couple days ago. This is a true story. I'll even send it to you. I'm picking out bathroom fixtures, and she sends me the quote. And on the end of the quote, she says, "Hey, Stephynie, if you'd like to look at our showroom through Matterport, you're more than welcome to do so."
That's so awesome. I'm done. I
was like, that's hysterical that you say that, because one of my good friends, and she was laughing. She was like, "Oh my God." She's like, "My kids are on that." I was like, yeah. So I started telling her the story, you know, of being able to be there and view things, and kids in poor countries that would never have the opportunity. I basically did the entire Robin Daniels spiel of this is what we're doing. And she was she was beside herself. She just thought it was the greatest thing ever.
My cousin, who's a teacher in Boston, I think it was 2 months ago, she sends me a screenshot of her doing a Matterport for her elementary school kids. You know, they were doing a tour of the Harvard Museum, which is in Matterport. It's just like, yes.
That's so awesome.
I was so excited. So
I think it's safe to say you hit it out of the park with this one.
Yeah. Well, as I like to say, I've done 2.5 IPOs, you know, Box, but I wasn't the CMO there, right, or anything, but Box, WeWork half, and then, you know, but it was weird, you know, I was at NASDAQ last week, you know.
Yeah.
We were doing the ceremony, taking the company public, and I was there 2 years ago, preparing, you know, I had photos of us, you know, looking at the space and, you know, preparing the whole thing, and so it was also weird from that perspective, like being back
What
in
a
the
trip,
same room.
Robin.
It was
yeah.
You know?
That's a little odd. Yeah, that's
it's so weird. It's
really good.
No, because it's so. I think it's so rare to even get the opportunity to go public. I mean, it's like once in a lifetime. So to have 2 in a row and one fail and one not, you know, it's like it's an amazing experience. I did not take it for granted. I enjoyed every second of it. I really did.
So I believe we've covered probably 5 or 6 obstacles into opportunities. I'm waiting for like 5 more, and then I'm going to have you back, because it's just always so fun. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Stephynie,
and I will definitely let you know when we go live, okay?
For sure. Thank you. All right. Bye.